Hey, can I show you something? I ran across some numbers a while back that honestly stopped me in my tracks, and I keep thinking about them. It's about retirement, specifically what most people actually have saved versus what they think they have saved. I know with the kids older now, tuition, cars, all of it, retirement probably feels like the thing you'll get to once things calm down. But that's kind of exactly why I wanted to bring it up now, while there's still time to actually do something about it. Mind if I walk you through it? It'll take like 10 minutes, and I promise it's more interesting than it sounds. So this is the thing I want to talk about. The gap between I have a 401k, I'm fine, and what that 401k is actually going to hand you when you need it. Let's start with the actual numbers, because I think most of us are walking around with a fuzzy, optimistic guess in our heads. And honestly, with older kids, it's worse. Tuition deposits, insurance on a new driver, a college fund that isn't a someday line item anymore. It's due next semester. Retirement is usually the account that quietly gets whatever's left over, if anything is. If you look at people in their 40s, so right in the middle of their careers, the typical person has somewhere around $65,000 saved in their 401k. Not the average, which gets skewed way up by a handful of people with huge balances. The typical middle-of-the-pack person. Move into your 50s, and that number climbs to around $100,000. And then, this is the part that gets me, by the time people are 60 to 65, basically knocking on retirement's door, the typical balance is only around $105,000. Think about that for a second. From your 50s to basically retirement age, the typical balance barely moves. That's not a lot of runway left to fix things. So if you blend all of that together, everybody roughly 40 to 65, you land on a number that a lot of researchers and retirement folks point to, about $95,000. Now, I want to be fair here, because I don't want to scare you with a number that's misleading. This is what people currently have. It's not a prediction of what they'll end up with by the time they retire. Somebody who's 42 right now still has 20 plus years to keep adding to that pile, and it'll keep growing. This also isn't the whole retirement picture. It doesn't count Social Security or a paid-off house or other savings sitting somewhere else. Okay, here's where it gets real. Let's say someone actually retires with that $95,000. Financial planners have this general rule of thumb. Pull out about 4% a year, and your money should last. 4% of $95,000 is $3,800 a year. Break that into months, and you're looking at about $307 a month. Let that sit for a second. $317 a month, and that's before taxes even come out. Because remember, that money's never been taxed yet. That's barely enough to cover keeping one teenager insured and gassed up for a month, let alone an actual retirement. That's the extra money a 401k alone is realistically handing the typical person, not the whole retirement, just what falls out of that one account. So naturally you'd ask, why? Why is the number so much smaller than people expect? A few reasons, and none of them are really anyone's fault. They're just how the system works. 1, the market doesn't care what year you plan to retire. If it dips right when you're about to stop working, that can permanently shrink how long your money lasts. 2, a 401k doesn't come with a guarantee. Unless you convert part of it into something like an annuity, there's no floor. It can straight up run out. 3, life happens. People borrow against their 401k or cash some out early during a rough patch, and that interrupts years of growth that never comes back. 4, and this one hits close to home for a lot of parents with older kids. The years when you should be ramping up retirement contributions, your peak earning years, are the exact same years tuition, cars, and everything else are draining the account instead. Retirement savings is usually the thing that gets paused so the immediate stuff gets covered, and those paused years don't come back either. And 5, honestly the most avoidable one. A lot of people just aren't contributing enough to get their full employer match. That's money just left on the table. Here's the reframe I want to leave you with on this part. Nobody's saying a 401k is bad. It's genuinely good. You should absolutely use it, especially up to your match. But treating it as your entire retirement plan is where people get into trouble. The people who actually retire comfortably, they usually aren't relying on one bucket. It's Social Security, plus the 401k, plus maybe some personal savings, maybe their home equity. And this is the part I actually wanted to show you tonight. Sometimes something extra layered in for balance. Something that doesn't move in lockstep with all the other buckets. And I'll be honest, the reason this matters to me for you specifically is timing. Your kids are getting close to launching, which means you're close to the finish line too, whether it feels like it or not. Nobody plans on needing help from their grown kids someday, but I didn't plan on it is exactly how a lot of families end up there anyway. Usually because the college years ate the exact stretch that should have been the biggest saving years. Building a couple extra legs under the stool now is really just about making sure that's never a conversation you or they have to have. So let me introduce you to one of those something extra options. It's called an IUL, or Indexed Universal Life Insurance. I know the name's a mouthful, but stick with me. At its core, it's a permanent life insurance policy. But the twist is, the cash value inside it grows based on how a market index, like the S&P 500, performs, within some guardrails. There's a floor, usually zero, meaning if the market has a bad year, you don't lose value because of it. And there's a cap, which means if the market has an amazing year, your gains are limited to a certain point. You don't capture all of that upside. On top of that, the growth is tax advantaged, and because it's built on top of a life insurance policy, there's a death benefit for whoever you leave it to. And with kids this age, that part is really about protecting the finish line. If something happened to you before they're all the way through school and on their own feet, this is what makes sure nobody has to drop out, delay a semester, or scramble because the plan got interrupted. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's magic, because it's not. And I'd rather you hear the trade-offs from me now than be surprised later. On the benefit side, that floor is real protection. The growth is tax advantaged, meaning you could avoid paying taxes. You can potentially pull from the cash value tax-free through policy loans. And unlike a 401k or IRA, there's no IRS limit capping how much you can put in. But, and this matters, that cap limits how much upside you actually get compared to just being in the market directly. There are costs built into the policy since it is insurance. If you cancel early, there can be surrender charges. You have to qualify health-wise to get one. And how well it actually performs depends a lot on which carrier you go with and how the policy's built. It's not a replacement for a 401k. It's a different tool for a different job. Before I wrap up, let me be straight with you, because I take this seriously. None of what I just said is legal or tax advice. I'm just walking you through concepts. If your employer offers a match, take the whole thing before you do anything else. That's free money, full stop. IUL policies vary a lot, carrier to carrier, so the details matter. And these numbers I showed you tonight are estimates meant to illustrate a point, not a guarantee of what's going to happen to your money. Bottom line, talk to an actual licensed advisor before making any real moves, and bring your specific situation to them. With kids this age, tuition timelines and everyone's numbers look different. I just want you to walk away thinking differently, not signing anything at the table tonight. So that's really it. I just wanted you to see the real math. That number most of us think is plenty often works out to a few $100 a month. And to know there are other pieces you can add to the plan, so you're not leaning on just one leg of the stool. At the end of the day, this was never really just about you. Your kids are almost through the expensive stretch and about to launch. The goal is you actually get to enjoy watching that happen instead of white-knuckling the finish line. And if anything ever happened to you before then, they get to keep going instead of the whole plan falling apart. If any of this got you thinking, I'd love to sit down properly and look at your specific situation. No pressure, just numbers on paper so you can see where you actually stand.